Hey everybody, welcome to Creative Frequencies. I am your host, Chris Vaglio, and this is the show where we have conversations with creative professionals from all walks of life. So if that kind of stuff is your jam, and then listen to my next guest. Let's rock. So why do we still even call it podcasting at this point?
Why do we?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, right? The word podcasting, right? It was started because of iPods.
Exactly.
Right? Which made sense. But it's like one of those things now where we kind of keep calling it podcasting, but there's no real iPods anymore. And I think a lot of people that probably be into podcasting don't even remember the thing as the iPod.
Exactly.
Maybe a younger generation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's because why change it at this point is really is really what it comes down to. And I think with YouTube being now embracing podcasting, at least more so than they ever have, I think it's going to be that name is going to be watered down even more. Right. I could see it. I could see it at some point just becoming podcasting, just being a part of YouTubing or having your YouTube channel or whatever. Yeah, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny now. I mean, when you think about it, like the lines have really been blurred. I understood it, like for sure. Like you and I both came from the generation because we're old, and we came from the point when we remember that when the iPod was a thing, and that's literally the podcasting came out of that, and that was kind of cool because it's like, oh, I can listen to music, but then you're like, wow, I could listen to these shows which aren't on the radio.
Yeah.
And YouTube still wasn't really that point. YouTube was more like the fun viral videos, like, history of yacht rock and the lonely girl. I forgot what, but like that kind of skit stuff was like what YouTube was, not what it is today.
Right.
And so now I think about it and I'm like, the whole podcasting word itself is like the lines are so blurred now because what even is a podcast anymore? It's literally just shows at this point.
That's all it is. It's talk shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess to call it a podcast still kind of differentiates it from like radio.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, and it definitely needs that. I used to, for a while, I used to call it internet radio. Like I was on this mission to rename it. This was probably a good 10 years ago, maybe a little less, where I would refuse to call it podcasting for those reasons that you're sharing and felt like let's just call it internet radio because really that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It really is just kind of internet radio at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. You just like when you listen to it now, I mean, there's ads, right? You have ads that run, there's host read ads, there's sponsorships. I mean, even, I know for my own personal, the show I do with Amanda, Song Swap Showdown, like, we do host read ads. We run it very much like a radio show, like kind of like doing our morning drive time DJ, morning show type of thing. I mean, that's
totally
we've modeled it. So yeah, it's just funny. So I just wanted to kick the show off by talking about that because it's like, why do we even still call it podcast at this point? It's 2024. Like it's just a show. But I think it's kind of like, why everybody calls tissues Kleenex or why you call
that's true.
Whatever a Q-tip. It's a cotton swab, but everybody just calls it Q-tip still. Like.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what it is.
That is kind of a good association, especially like you said, because of the fact that it was named from iPod and much like Kleenex and tissues, it's kind of the similar thing. Yeah. But the thing is that Kleenex had tissues. Podcasting doesn't have that official name that it can lean on. But I'm saying it's internet radio. Damn it.
I like it. I like it. Internet radio. So here it is, everybody. From now on, podcasts will now be referred to as internet radio.
Yes.
Get it straight. Change everything. Change everything.
Yeah, change it all.
We're on the as I'm wearing a shirt that says podcast, and you have podcast morning chat T-shirt on. Where it's internet radio morning chat doesn't sound as sexy as podcast. Podcast still sounds sexy. I think that's
something about it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think too. I think what makes it interesting, just talking about the whole world of podcasting, and like I know from my journey and getting into it, I was originally a college radio DJ back in the day. I used to, college radio, like I did, free form, whatever I wanted to do. It was kind of great. So I've always sort of had that like radio, as we're talking about the radio bug of being on, talking on air, talking about music. And, so it's only makes sense to me that I wound up getting and starting a show that I talk about music. And that's what I used to do when I was in college. But I think about too, like my background as far as, having done video production and production for a living for over 20 years. And I know, Mark, you in particular, you have done production and you
Yeah.
have a production background as well. So just thinking about that, like, I think about how much I still lean on that today. Like, even doing this show, like how much I've leaned on my experiences in production and creating. I mean, do you find that same thing happening to you? Do you find that like what you did in back in TV and all that is completely like is now just manifested itself into,
Yep.
podcasting and content creation?
100%. Yeah, because look, here's the thing is when I got into TV, it was not that long ago. I think it was, it's funny is this is how I reference the year. It was at whatever the year was that The Force Awakens came out. That's
Mhm.
that's how I know when I started in TV because it was right around that same time, and you know what a fan I am.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but so whatever year that was the first time coming back to TV since really my college days, and I am so grateful, even though the format of that particular show I worked on was not my cup of tea. I'll just leave it at it was politics. Even that said, I learned so much about production that I use to this day especially when I'm creating shorts, or when I'm working with my own video editors that work with my company.
Mhm.
Just understanding the lingo and how an editor understands things,
Right.
interprets things, and being able to communicate that. It's those types of things that were invaluable that, I could never have relied on my college experience years ago because things have
Right.
changed so much since then.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, it's I mean, you and I both got into it at the time where things were still even done on VHS, and DVDs were like a premium to like burn something onto a DVD. And I remember like overnighting, like that's how, for a client to like approve an edit, be like, "Oh, I'm going to overnight you to VHS tape," or, once we were able to afford a DVD burner, like, "We're going to overnight you to DVD. Why don't you
Yeah.
watch it and then get back to me with notes?" Because they couldn't come in and watch the edit, and literally would probably do that about 10 times over. And now it's just, this is for all younger folks listening, this is how we used to do things. Yes, it's archaic, but that's the way we did it. But now it's just like boom, boom, boom. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
It
It's
really is night and day different. And there's no way we would have gotten anything out of our education then that we could apply now. I mean, I
yeah.
literally was learning how to edit audio using a razor blade and slicing the
Yep.
actual tape and then piecing it back together. And yeah, it was
Yeah.
a whole thing. It took you think it takes a long time to edit now? Check it out back then. It's pretty crazy.
Hey everybody, Chris here. Are you a creative professional that's struggling to turn your passion into a thriving business? I totally get it, right? You're an artist, designer, writer, maybe you're a podcaster. Regardless, you're an entrepreneur with a unique vision. But let's be real. Navigating the business world can be overwhelming. That's where I come in. I specialize in helping creative pros just like you build profitable and scalable businesses. Imagine having a partner who truly understands your unique challenges and provides personalized strategies for success. From pricing your services and finding new clients to mastering time management and negotiating like a pro, I've got your back. With one-to-one personalized coaching, custom workshops, and mastermind groups, I'm here to help you elevate your business to new heights. I have over 25 plus years of experience, and I bring the expertise and support you need to grow with confidence. Don't let the business side of things dim your creative spark. Join me now, and let's transform your passion into a powerful and profitable business. To book a free consultation with me, just visit rocketgrowthagency.com to learn more and get started. Let's rock. So, you've got your production company, iRonick Media. So tell me a little bit about that, because I know you're saying you have like a team. You got a team you work with. So what are you focusing on, like day in and day out, then on iRonick Media?
Yeah, so we're focusing on one of two things, either production or consultation, and sometimes both. My clients are hiring me to, in some cases, they just want to record. They just want to hit that button and then be done with it until it is polished and ready to go. So they hand that raw recording off to me and my company. I work with my editing team and my virtual assistants to make that happen for them, go through the whole production process. And, that's from editing to writing effective show notes and titles and publishing it to the correct platforms, all that stuff we do. And then there's another segment of my audience that I'm consulting or coaching,
Mhm.
teaching them the ins and outs of podcasting, from strategy to marketing strategies to interview strategies, you name it. So yeah, that's been the focus. And I think lately the bigger focus, at least as far as what's been incoming, has been a lot more consultation and coaching
Mhm.
versus production. And when I started, it was kind of the other way around. So I feel
Right.
like, to the point that we were just making earlier, it's gotten so much easier that there's maybe less of a need for a production company.
Mhm.
I still believe there's a lot more you could do with a production
Right.
company, and I see and understand that there's a value to the independent podcaster who has found some easy tools to do it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, it's there's something about podcasting, internet radio. It's very democratic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's literally is. I think of all, and this is me talking, someone who's had the background, and you've
Yeah.
had the background, but I feel like the barrier of entry into the world of podcasting, internet radio, content creation doesn't take a lot. Like literally anyone with an idea and the will to do it can get into it. I mean, the
Sure.
tools are so accessible. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like your phone is literally at this point in the game, like phones are literally portable studios. I mean,
Yeah.
on you can do pretty much everything from your phone. You can
Yes.
record, you can create, you can edit, you can, I mean, everything you can do from your phone. So, I mean, as opposed to even what it was like you said 2 years ago, 5 years ago, I just feel like the barrier of entry as far as mediums go, and when we talk about podcasting and creating shows, it just seems like it's very
Yeah,
democratic, man. Anybody could do it.
I agree with you, and I still think, actually, I'm going to say I disagree with you technically,
Okay.
because I don't think anybody can do it. I still think there is a big enough learning curve where you, at the very least, have to have some patience and some time. Because, yeah, to your point, yes, you could do it everything on your phone. And if you really want to edit it cleanly, edit it to your taste, to your liking, you have to spend some time with the software or the
Right.
apps and learn how to use them. And a lot of people, that's quickly where they get discouraged. They don't want they want what you said. They want to be able to just say, okay, I'm in, I can just do this, this is nothing, it's easy. But there is absolutely a learning curve you have to be ready for and patient for.
Mhm. Do you find it hard teaching people this?
That concept.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, like teaching people how to do that. Like, like, hey, I want a podcast. I'm this far. Like, really like trying to educate them on what it is and how to use this, and then teach somebody who's like, I want to do this, but I don't understand the technical side of it. Like, do you
Yes.
struggle with teaching people how to train? I mean,
I don't love teaching people the technical side of things,
yeah,
because it does take a lot of time, and
right,
there are a lot of steps. And that's part of the reason for my business, so that they don't have to necessarily learn that.
right.
And I do believe it is important to know some of the ins and outs of this, because it's going to be really challenging for a podcaster to communicate their needs and wants to someone else doing it for them.
Hmm.
So getting your hands dirty, understanding the processes and procedures will take you a long way. But yeah, it's frustrating. I think really the hardest part to communicate to people is that they do have to be patient, that they do have to take time,
Hmm.
that that it's very rare to become an overnight success in podcasting.
And there it is, right? Because
Yeah.
I think that I'm not going to say everybody because that would be very unfair to say, but I think that a lot of people see the tip of the iceberg, the end result, right, of hard work, of teams, of having done it, and see what it looks like on the other side, but
Yeah.
yet feel like, wow, how did this person know I could do this, I could do that, but like kind of always feel like that they can skip the steps
Yeah.
and the people that have made it haven't really skipped any steps. Like they are there because of the things that they've done, the time that they've put in. Maybe, like I love Smartless. You know, we talk about this. You love Smartless, but like the three
Hmm.
guys on that show, like they are who they are. Like they are celeb, but they have worked. They have grinded. They've put in
Right.
the required 10,000 or 100,000 hours to be good at what they do. And then together, like like a band, have kind of found this like synergy and now created a show together. But like all that stuff isn't just like, they didn't just flip the switch, put the mic on and go, hey, that's it. Like there's been a lot of things that have happened for them. Yes, being celebrities gives them a platform, but they didn't just become celebrities overnight. And
Exactly.
you know, and it also takes the three of those guys to actually create that show, by the way. Because you know, listen, I love all those guys, but separately, I don't know if I'd want to hear a show just by each guy. The
Right.
three of them together make that show
It's the chemistry.
entertaining.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the chemistry for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, that's just it. Is there really isn't in most cases a magic pill that will just bring you instant
yeah.
success. It's you've either worked for that audience and then you're trying something new and they're just following you over, much like the guys at Smartless, or you're taking the time to nurture, to build, nurture, and grow a community and an audience. Those are really I wish I had a magic formula for people, and
There
that
isn't.
that there really isn't. It's time, it's effort, and honestly, it's money.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it does cost some money. And listen, you don't have to go break the bank, but there
Mm-mm.
is going to be a financial investment at some point, whether it's a hobby or you want to do it for your business, especially if you're doing it for your business, like because time is money and there has to be like if you're saying, hey, I'm doing a podcast for my business, then it has to make sense for the business because you ask yourself, how does this move the needle in my business? You know, how much time am I putting into it? What's the end result? Why am I doing this? Like all those things. I mean, if you're just doing it because you want to go on and talk about music and talk about comic books or movie or whatever it is you just love talking about, or you want to create some kind of public awareness
Yeah,
or create some activism around an issue, hey, great, like
yeah,
go do it. But at some point, you're gonna have to say there's always gonna be a fork in the road of like, I need to make an investment somewhere, you know, and like
yes,
time is a huge investment, but at some point, you're gonna have to make a sort of a financial investment. I mean, even you know, the financial investment of like using the platform that I use to do this show, like StreamYard,
yeah,
that costs money every month. Like the free one just doesn't do it enough. Like you know, I don't want it. I want to have the tools to be able to create the things I want to create. Like, and then you talk about the gear. Like, I don't have to have all this gear. Like, I started off really simple, literally with a USB mic. That was my
yeah,
only gear. And over, you know, I've been podcasting since 2014. Over that time, I've got, okay, let me get this piece. Let me get this mic. Let me get this mixer. Like, I've
hmm,
pieced it together, but like, it definitely cost money to do. It wasn't all free. Nobody gave it to me.
yeah,
That's for sure.
right, right.
You
And
know,
even the editing software we were just talking about, how much easier it is. That costs you money too.
yeah, I'd pay
Sure,
for
there's
that.
free stuff, but the stuff that you pay for is the stuff that's going to make it easier and a little quicker for you.
Yeah,
So yeah, and then if you really want help, then you're going to hire somebody like me, and there's going to be an expense involved in
of
that.
course.
So yeah, you have to be prepared. And look, pulling back your curtain a little bit for your audience, one of the questions you told me we would try to tackle today is, does podcasting still work?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
honestly, like, why
And
would you even do this anymore?
right, right. And I told you, I'm actually literally today, I'm asking myself that question. Before you came to me and said we're going to talk about this, I found it very interesting that here we are with this question, because I've been sitting on it a lot, and I'm going to be really frank with you and really
Yeah,
open with you. So today I lost another customer, another
mhm,
client. And I say another because this year I've lost more clients, I believe. I have to go back and double check this, but I'm pretty sure I've lost more clients this year than I have in the almost 5 years I've been doing this business.
right.
And almost every single one of them, it wasn't because they didn't like working with me. They actually were hesitating to quit because they still wanted to work with me. But they're quitting because they don't feel like they're seeing the success that they had expected.
Right.
And all of these clients as well, they're all clients that have been with me for at least a year, some of them even longer. So these aren't people that, put in a couple months and said, oh, this sucks, it's not working. Like, these are people that put in some effort.
Yeah.
And the problem I see is that some of these clients and a lot of other podcasters, they, again, there's a level of patience that they
Mhm.
don't have. And I think that they're not setting their expectations initially. They're not, as much as we did it maybe together, me and the clients, a
Right.
year or 2 years ago, where we sat down and said, what are the expectations? I think what happens is that they sometimes fool themselves and
Mhm.
or kind of lie to themselves and say, okay,
Right.
yes, I know that this is going to take time, so I'm going to set this realistic goal. But really, in the back of their mind, all they're thinking is, how do I get more audience? How do I get more
Mhm.
money? And they're not focusing on some of the other areas of success.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
I
it's been it's been challenging for me to see people giving up, because
Mhm.
even a year, I think, isn't long enough to really see it to fruition.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, I think that doing a show for a year, and it also depends on your frequency too. Like
Sure.
1 year could literally be 12 episodes for
Right?
some people.
Yeah.
Some people are doing 2 times a month, some people are doing every other, I mean, whatever is their schedule. Some people do it, whenever they want. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of factors in there, but I think that how I've always looked at it, and this is me personally, so right or wrong, because it's how I've tempered my expectations over the years, so I don't fall into that, is because I have been there, is that especially when it comes to this show, right? So this show in particular, Creative Frequencies, used to be called Rocket Live, now called
Yep.
Creative Frequencies, is really an outshoot of my business, Rocket Growth Agency. And what does Rocket Growth Agency do? Well, I, much like you, I work one-on-one with a lot of creative professionals and I help them build their business. I basically leverage my 20 years experience of owning a video production company and teaching them the things I learned, all the mistakes I made, and
Mm.
helping them to see that and maybe shorten their curve a little bit, their learning curve a little bit, and get them to a point where their businesses are thriving and making money. This show is just an offshoot of me having conversations with other creatives like yourself, people who are in their business doing things, and what have they gone through? How did they get started? Like just these kinds of conversations. These are real conversations people need to kind of hear. And that's the point of this. And the point, and then from there, it's literally like this goes out to my network. That's it.
Hmm.
It goes out to my mailing list, the people on LinkedIn, the people I connect with, all that. And that's at the end of the day, as long as that audience is kind of getting it, and then maybe I'm top of mind with somebody
Yeah.
and they want to refer me business, fantastic, great.
Yeah.
That moves the needle in my business. But also them just saying, "Hey, Chris, I heard that episode with Mark. That was really good stuff. I was really into that. I learned a lot." Well, also mission accomplished. Those and those are my KPIs, right?
Hmm.
The monetary side for me comes from the actual, like, well, maybe they'll refer me for coaching, or I'm just more top of mind in there. And now I've also created more value within my network, right? Who, I've created something that engages them, keeps them wanting to follow me, keeps me relevant to them. Like that's my KPI when it comes to business. When it comes to things I do with like Song Swap Showdown with Amanda, my host Amanda Sharp, who you know really well,
Yep.
that show was really born out of the two of us wanting to just entertain and have a good time and have a creative outlet. Now, over
Right.
time, we've been doing it now for 4 years. Yes, there is a monetary aspect that we do have our eyes set on. We've had
Hmm.
sponsors where I'm very close to going to next level of monetization on YouTube. All cool stuff. But because you've helped, we've been at that for over 4 years. And
Yeah.
just now, in year 4 of that show, are we kind of starting to see something that might lead to monetization? Once again, the goal for that show was just to have a creative outlet, have fun, and do something. And over time, it's turned into something. So,
Yeah. It's evolved. Yeah.
right.
Sure.
So, all I'm trying to make the point is that I think it comes down to really, you got to really temper your expectations. And like, if you really want to, I think what it really comes down to, if you think you're going to make a lot of money off podcasting, you're wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate to burst your bubble. It's not that it's
Straight.
impossible.
Hmm.
It's definitely possible, 100%. But if you think this is going to be like your only source of income and all you're going to do is podcast, it's not happening.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
going to be
I
really challenging,
yeah.
because in the reason why I say Chris is saying it's not happening is because we've seen it too many times where people aren't willing to spend 4.5 years on a project and just now start to see some results and see some excitement coming from it, right? So
Good.
yeah, I think it's possible, like you said, and you have to put in the time and have to have the patience.
Right.
That's why I know it sounds silly, but I really believe success in podcasting to me is very subjective, right? We've
Right.
talked about it. For
Yeah.
some of us, it might be about audience growth and revenue, while for others, it's about personal fulfillment. It can be about maybe you want to build some skills. You mentioned that earlier. Like,
Yeah.
what did I get out of being in TV? It can be for building a community. It can be an outlet for
Yep.
creative expression.
Yep.
I think the key is to really understand why you're in it and decide, okay, if I'm in it for money, I know I have to be in this for a really long haul. If I'm in this for creative expression, I can feel a little more free about this. I could stop at any time.
Right.
It's a little more liberating and
Yeah.
not as much pressure. And maybe that's sometimes all we need is just that creative outlet.
I agree. 1,000%. I think that you've said it right. It's not that it's impossible to make money from this, but like literally, if you're gonna run this as your business and this is how I'm going to make money and support my life and my livelihood, then man, you really better treat this as a business and you're gonna be dedicating your life to this, like how you would any business. I mean, that's kind
Yeah.
of it. Like you
Yeah.
gotta go weigh in hard and be on it. And this is what you're doing full time every day is running your podcast like a business. And that's ultimately you will see success there. You will, because if you're focused, you'll see something there, right? But
Yeah.
if you're like doing your business and you're also doing podcasts and a bunch of other things, it's like the reality is like that podcast really isn't going to make you a ton of money. That doesn't mean you won't make any money, but you're not going to be making, hey, I can retire from everything else kind of money and just
Right.
make this my day job. Like that's just not happening, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
That's
Again,
the reality.
unless you're willing to really put in the time, effort, and money,
Correct.
right? And so as I've been thinking about this question today, one of the areas I'm thinking about is, look, a lot of people nowadays are using podcasting for their business as a complement to their
Right.
business, right? And that's great. And and by the way, I don't think this is earth shattering, but I do think I want to explore more the idea, if a business person comes to me and says, I want a podcast for my business, I really want to focus on only doing one season. And, whatever that looks like, maybe that's 12 episodes, maybe that's 18, whatever number that they're comfortable with, and lean on that. Make it your library, make it your representation of your business. Gives your business that personality, and it showcases you, it showcases what you offer, and then just sit back and lean on that. You can repurpose the content week after week. You can direct potential clients and current clients to specific episodes that apply to them and wherever they're at in their journey. But maybe that's the key, is instead of week after week, or maybe in some cases day after day, putting out new podcasts, maybe that isn't the most effective way for a business person to podcast, and instead just come up with a short series, lean on that, and then you know what, if it's taken off, or if you really enjoyed it, you'll do another season, but just focus on one season that really represents your whole business.
I love that. That's a
Yeah.
great idea. That's solid advice. Like actually, like I
Yeah.
didn't even really think about it that way, but I like that idea a lot. I think
Yeah.
that makes a ton of sense, and it's not a huge time commitment. It's a great way to test the waters, and I think it also helps to temper expectations too.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that a lot of us have been at one point or another subject to, for lack of a better term, the gurus out there. And let's be real for a minute. The gurus, a lot of times, not everyone, but there are a lot of gurus out there that are telling you things because they want you to keep coming back, right? They want to help you just enough to create a new challenge for you, and then want to come back to them
Right.
again and get more advice. And so that whole idea of, be consistent, be consistent, be consistent. Sure, that's going to maybe help you with discoverability. I question that these days too. And instead, it's it's just put out a body of work that you can lean on time after time.
Right.
Right. If you're going to be consistent, or, if you have to post content regularly, you have plenty. If you've built up a 12 episode series, you have plenty of content that you can continue to use week after week on social media, on your website, in your newsletters, etc., and all pointing back to the podcast.
Yeah, that's very solid, man. I agree. I mean, I know I've got that. I am sitting on a chunk of content that I could easily be reusing and repurposing rather than constantly having to create new stuff. But
Yeah.
but I also like creating new stuff. So I'm I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to that stuff. But I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, I think it's a wonderful way to look at it, and it creates a lot less heartache, I think, than what you need to.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
why work harder when you can work smarter.
And exactly. And me doing a daily podcast, maybe the passion's coming through because I feel it. I know
Yeah.
it's a lot of work, and it's hard. Like, this is my business. Podcasting is my business, right?
Right.
And so everybody thinks, well, then I should be able to sit and talk about it every day. But the truth of the matter is how many things about
Right.
podcasting can I talk about? And
Right.
it's not, and that's not a knock on my business
No.
of podcasting. It's any business. It's like
Right.
new things arise, and that's a great opportunity to talk about those new things, or maybe a business has evolved or whatever. Sure, there are times and opportunities that you can have new content, but to force it isn't authentic, and it's not going to feel good to the host, and then the audience isn't going to really appreciate the content either, and you're just creating a vicious cycle that you don't have to be a part of.
Yeah, it's like talking about pizza every day. Like, I
Right.
love pizza, and I can
Love it.
talk about pizza, but at some point, talking about
Yeah.
pizza 5 days a week, like, I think I'm gonna run out of things to talk about when it comes to pizza, and the people I have on are gonna run out of things because after a while, you're just saying the same thing over and over again, just
Right.
as a maybe differently. It's
Yeah.
that's kinda it.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, yeah, sure, you can bring on guests to come
Yeah.
in. How many different perspectives could there possibly be?
Right.
At some point, you do
Yes.
run out and you start hearing the same
Yeah.
stuff over and over. And yes, there is a value there too, because a new listener or new audience member may find your content today and you're talking about that same thing you've talked about 10 times already. Sure, there's value there, but let's not forget about the big picture too. There's an entire audience you're serving, and you've got to consider the whole audience, not just the new people coming in. It's like a friend of mine once said to me, it's, if you're hosting a party, if you're sitting there looking over the shoulder of all the guests who are there in that moment for who's the next one coming in.
Right, yeah. You're looking over the shoulder.
Right. Nobody's appreciating you as a host.
Right.
And if anything, they're kind of annoyed by you, right?
Right.
So instead, focus on who you have. Right. And cater to them.
Agreed. Great.
Yeah.
Your friend was very wise.
Yes.
He must be a Jedi. I don't know. So I want to just go back to it real quick, because you did mention it. You do a daily podcast, and said I know this, but for listeners out there and anybody who is watching this, Mark actually runs a daily room on an app some of you may have forgotten about. It was big for a little bit, for a while. It was huge. It was the biggest thing. It was going to change the internet. And now people are like, what? Where? That's still a thing? It's about Clubhouse, which is funny because, I mean, I still say, and on your room, the podcast morning chat room, is the only reason I even still keep Clubhouse on my phone.
Me too.
That's it. I don't go into anything. I mean, I remember the first year it was out, it was Clubhouse. I was doing shows on Clubhouse and writing blogs. Now it's like, wait, what? Clubhouse? That's still a thing. That didn't go out of business yet. They're not belly up yet. But I mean, you've been doing the podcast morning chat, man, every day, like Monday through Friday for, what's it been, 3 years now? 4 years?
It's been 2.5.
2.5. Well, I guess I just been involved in podcast morning chat.
Yeah, and the podcasting,
when it
the
first
iteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1.0.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think it's kind of cool though, man. I mean, it was like, what did you start this a few months ago? Like, you actually started recording because if anybody doesn't know Clubhouse, it's a social audio app, and you go on, you can have conversation, you got to run rooms. It could be just you. It's not like messaging's involved. Yeah, it's all live, and you could record the rooms. And so Mark's been putting out podcast morning chat, as a daily podcast.
Right.
And I think that's genius.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think it's genius.
I was doing it just streaming it just live for 2 years. And then, yeah, right around the anniversary, the second anniversary, I decided, why aren't I putting this out as content? Because
Yeah.
to your point, Clubhouse isn't as big as it used to be. Yeah, we still fill up
Yeah.
a room. We maybe get 50 people come through on
Yeah. I mean,
average.
people are still on the app. It's just not like
Right.
the
It's
the
not like it
sensation that it
was.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm using it really more like a vehicle. It's really my way of, again, talking about internet
Yeah.
radio. That's the way I'm using it. It's almost like my phone lines for my morning show.
Yeah, I
That's
agree. That's the
that's
feel I get.
that's the feel for me that I use it. And of course, it would probably benefit me to do it on a platform or multiple platforms that could get me in front of more people. And I'm happy where I am. Like, it's working
Yeah.
for me. And we have a regular rotating cast and characters that show up every day. And I
Certainly
get
do.
feedback to this day. I get feedback from people saying that they really feel like they know the hosts and guests that are regularly involved on
Right.
that show. They feel like they've become friends with them, even if they've never had a conversation with
Yeah.
them before. So I look at it as a vehicle, and yes, it helps a little bit with discoverability. And I just felt like, okay, I'm a guy who teaches podcasting. I really want to have my own podcast. I want it again, right? I've
Sure.
had many.
Yeah.
And the live thing is doing great, but I wanted to be in the thick of it like my clients were. I wanted to feel that again because it had been so long. Doing the live thing felt super easy to me once I got comfortable with it, because yeah, you just hit go, and then when you're done and walk away from it. That was very freeing, but I wanted to be in the trenches and go through the struggles that my clients go through, or that the people who are participating in the podcasting morning chat, what they're going through. I think it's important for me to kind of have my finger on that pulse. And it really has served me well, because it's still it's a struggle to grow this thing as a podcast. It takes just as much work as everybody else to make it happen. And sometimes it's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, it's not it's still not just press one button and the whole thing happens,
Right.
it's still a process, and you still want to make it sound, I mean, as live as it is. I mean, the live is live, but there's still something you want to do. You still want to make it sound decent before you put it up for
No, and you got
everybody.
to
It's
do all the
right.
post-production stuff, not necessarily editing, but even more so just the marketing and promotion and getting the word out there. That's the big challenge, and that's what a lot of
Yeah.
us spend. Besides editing, that's probably where most podcasters are spending their time, is in marketing and promotion.
Yeah, definitely marketing and promotion. I mean, that's kind of always the game, man, because I mean, people aren't just gonna stumble on it like the way
No.
you want them to. I mean, you hope, oh my gosh, discovery would be great, but discovery accounts for a very, very small fraction of the podcast audience. Like, it really comes down to, you got to push it out to always start with the people in your own backyard. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so true. Even those people who have a social media following of like a million people
Yeah.
or more, right? Those people, you could show me somebody today that's got 1 million plus followers that I probably have never heard of, never seen before, right? So it's just funny, because sometimes we as independent podcasters expect something just to blow up because we know it's so good. But if somebody with 1 million followers is still having a hard time, with me finding them, why do we think that a smaller presence is going to have an easier time? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's why I've always just been a big advocate of, start small, start with your people in your own backyard.
Yeah.
And go from there, because word of mouth does spread. Word of mouth does still work. So, really focus in on just the people around you first before you start trying to blow out the whole, hey, I want to take over the world type of thing. Like, hey, you may and you might, but you know what? Don't start there. Start smaller and then work your way up there.
Agreed.
you know?
Agreed.
So we're talking. So this whole conversation to me is leading to the one thing, and I just had Mike Ham on the show recently. So
Yeah.
for anybody listening, if you're listening to this out of order, definitely go check out the interview I did with Mike Ham where we talked about his podcast and how he has grown it and developed it to be more than just a podcast. And he just did his event, Jersey Fest.
Yeah.
So, like I said, if you're listening to this out of order, go back and listen to that, because I think that between this show, this episode, and that episode, I think for people who are like saying, well, how do I go to the next level? I think both these episodes are really going to help you understand how to do things and how to think a little bit more outside of just your podcast or just your creation.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mark is actually got a conference happening. So,
Yeah.
Mike developed Jersey Fest, which is a celebration. It tied in really well with his podcast, Greetings from the Garden State. It made sense. And now for you and what you're doing with iRonick Media and Podcast Morning Chat, this just seemed to me like absolutely 1000% the perfect evolution for you, which was then to start an empowered podcasting conference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about that, because I know personally you've been talking about doing this for a while. So I am like over the moon that you like pulled the trigger, got a team of great people together, and like are seeing this through for the first annual Empowered Podcasting Conference. So let's talk a little bit about this and like what is this all about, and what are people's expectations? What are your expectations? What can people get out of coming to this thing? Like, I want to hear from you.
Yeah. I decided to do this for multiple reasons. One is that we've built a community with the Podcasting Morning Chat, so much so that people were clamoring to do an in-person get-together. So that's kind of where it started. I always had a vision and an idea in my head that I wanted to host my own conference. And I figured, let's explore this idea of all of us getting together. And quickly I realized, look, it's first of all, it's hard to get a smaller group all together from all different parts of the country in one place.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to create a small event where maybe 4 or 5 people showed up, which would have been great and a lot of fun, but I wanted something more, and I wanted it to be something more substantial for the people participating. And so it was one of those things where it just was like, just bite the bullet and let's see where this goes. Right. So I decided the second reason why I wanted to do a conference is I had been to enough over the past few years that I saw potential opportunities to host something different, right? Like, there's no knock against Podfest, podcast movement. I've met some of my closest friends within this industry because of those events.
Right.
So it's not a knock. It's just what are some things they're not doing that I would like to have seen,
Sure.
and can I implement it at this event? So that's really where it comes from. I wanted to do something for the independent podcaster because I know how much they can struggle with finding their way, finding their time, finding their resources, etc. So to create a space where they all can get together and learn from one another, that to me is how I learn the best. I'm not gonna, I need that attention, that one-on-one. I need to learn from other people's experiences, and doing it in a setting like a conference where I can first sit down, hear a speaker, learn from that speaker, and then network with other podcasters who are going through my struggles, that maybe some of them have their own input and ideas that got them through it. Maybe they're just commiserating with me, but there's a whole bunch of different reasons that the networking aspect is also so important. So yeah, it's a space really to learn from fellow podcasters and network and collaborate with fellow podcasters. And we're really focused on the independent podcaster, those people who aren't smartless, right? They're guys like you and me, gals like you and me, people that really are trying to make a go of this on their own.
Yeah, and I think this is great because you got a great lineup here of speakers, and there's me. But but I mean, honestly, though, I mean, you got a really awesome, diverse group of creators on like all tasked to come in here and share
And
their
they really
experience.
come
So I
from
mean, this is just awesome.
yeah, they come from all sizes, right? Like some of
Mm,
them have worked with some really big name podcasts, or some of them are still working things out and figuring things out,
sure.
but have figured some things out enough to be able
Yeah.
to share it on a stage. So yeah, we tried hard to get a real variety of people that have seen all different aspects of podcasting.
Right, and so this is gonna be running, the actual conference day is Saturday, June 29th, but
That's the big, yeah, that's the
that's
big
the
day with all the different
yeah,
workshops and presentations. Yeah.
right, but the 28th is the kickoff party, and then
Hmm.
obviously the 30th is checking out, and there's a VIP breakfast and all that,
Yep.
but I mean, this is pretty cool. This is gonna be in Charlotte, right? So at
Yep.
the Hyatt Centric Hotel in downtown Charlotte is where,
Yep.
you're gonna be hosting this, and so, Charlotte to me, first of all, as a Jersey guy, I love Charlotte. It's not that far from here. It's a
No,
very
it's not too
short
bad.
plane ride, and as far as even driving go, it's actually not that bad. But why Charlotte? Like, is there a certain why you guys picked Charlotte
A
other than
lot of
other than
people
price?
a lot of people tell me they think that it's because I live in Asheville and it's an even shorter travel distance from here, but it really had nothing to do with that. We were trying to find different locations that would work for our community. That was
Mhm.
really the basis first of like, okay, where are we going to do this? Well, let's
Right.
build it off of where our community finds it works best for them. But we pivoted because one of us, Simona, who's on the team, Simona had just interviewed this woman, and she's from Charlotte. She's the president of the AMA, and she knows a lot of people in the area, knows a lot of podcasters in the area, has a podcast business helping podcasters with Facebook ads and
Mhm.
Instagram ads, etc. And it just felt like there could have been a nice fit. And when I talked to her, it was a nice fit, and
Right.
and it was nice to have somebody in an area that could be our boots on the ground, could be that person that could say yay or nay, go look at places, etc. So yeah, it was a matter of convenience and finding the right person to really help us make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I'm excited for it. I mean, I'm excited to be a speaker, but I'm just excited. Even if I wasn't a speaker, I would still be going to this because I love this kind of stuff, and this is exactly right up my alley. And I like the independent feel of it, and the
Hmm.
fact that I mean, listen, nothing against the other shows; they're all great, but it's always good to have something a little different and alternative, right? And maybe,
Yeah,
like you said, fill in the holes. That's maybe some of those other places, the other conferences aren't, just because sheer size and time and all that. I mean, these things can't be a week long. I mean, it could be a week long, but I mean, honestly, you can't hit everything in one show a lot of times. So you really got to sort of spread it around. And so I think that this is serving a great, like, just a great event for the community, for a podcasting community as a whole, or content. Should even say podcasts, just content creators in general, like to
yeah,
come learn, be better, hear from other people just like them, um, who are out there doing it, and said, "Hey, I've learned a few things. Maybe what I've learned will help you." I mean, that's
exactly.
really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yep,
And I love that. It's the way it should be. Everybody should be sharing their experience with each other and helping each other out. I think that's an awesome, very positive thing to do. So, but
100%.
but what I love here, before we wrap it up, is that once again, another great example of how to take something and go to the next level with it, right? How to think a little bit out of the box. So for anybody out there who's like, maybe some of you did hear the episode with Mike and you're like, I don't know, how do I go from a podcast to doing a Jersey Fest? Well, you heard that interview. Mike had been thinking about it and trying to think of ways to do it. And finally, like, because he was thinking of ways of doing it, opportunity presented itself because
Yes.
he was already trying to figure it out. And the thing is, anybody listening to this, you are completely capable of doing anything like this. Maybe it doesn't have to be at the Hyatt Hotel in Charlotte today, but it could just be something you host local right now in your community, at a restaurant, at a brewery, at a park. I mean, whatever. I mean, there are so many different things you can do to think a little bit more out of the box. But this
Yeah.
is exactly the way Mark is thinking, and what Mark shared here today is another way for you to take it from point A to point B to point C and just move your way up. And so you don't have to just be stuck in this, like, well, I just do this podcast and that's kind of it, but I really wish I could do more, but I don't know how, or I don't want it. Like, there is ways to do it. And
Yeah.
so I think between these two episodes, like, hopefully you guys have gotten something out of this and that said, wow, I could do this, because you are capable of doing it, you know?
That's just it. And a lot of people, I think, are quick to dismiss something because it's not something they have experience with, or they think it's going to be this big thing that they have no idea. And the truth of the matter is we can make it work, right? Like yes, okay, I have plenty of podcasting experience. I have no experience planning a conference,
Right.
right? And so some people might say, well, then I have no business doing it. But I think if anything, it's an advantage for me, because
Yeah.
I'm not stuck in that pigeonhole of, the do's and don'ts of
Right.
conference planning, right? I'm just going in green and just making it work for me as best I
That's it.
can, and making it work for the people coming as best as I can. And I'm going to see where it goes. Do I
Yeah.
expect this to be a huge success right out of the gate? No, I have no expectation of that. And I'm just looking at it as a learning experience. And if I have the right intentions and the right people, it'll be a success in some fashion.
100. Listen, the fact that you even did it is already a success, you know.
Sure.
And anything you do for the first time is always going to be a learning curve. Nothing's going to go 100%. I mean, you know this from me in production. All you do is you prepare for everything you can prepare for, and then variables are going to happen, and then you lean on your experience to help deal with those variables when they come up, and they will. And you're going to then be better this year. You know, next year you'll be better because you have gone through it, new experience, new ways of learning. And the thing is, you could talk about it forever, but you actually did it. So, and the thing is, you didn't do it alone. You got help.
No.
You got a team of people to work with, people who have had experience in conferences and putting things together, and ask them to help you, which is another lesson to be learned here, everybody, is ask for some help.
Yeah.
Because
And
people
what,
will
Chris?
say yes.
Because of this part of the conversation, I want to make it clear. Actually, I don't think anybody on this team has real conference planning experience.
Okay,
The only
well, there you
experience
go.
we have is we attended these different
Perfect.
conferences. But that's the only experience. And so I do think it's important to call that out, because I think if it's something that someone has as a passion or desire, you got to scratch that itch and see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, okay, so it didn't work out, but you might have learned some things that if you want to try it again the next time, you're going to be in a much better position.
Yep. Excellent. Very well said. I think that's a great way to wrap up today's show. Marc Ronick, thank you so much for coming today, buddy. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris.
Mark,
I needed this outlet today, so thank you.
Good.
It was helpful.
That's the point of this show.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? What's the best place for people to connect with Mark?
I would say probably the best bet is to go to iRonickmedia.com, IRONICK media.com, because if you do, then you can find where you can connect with me everywhere else, social media, etc. But usually you'll find me at my full name or at iRonick Media on all social media platforms.
Right on. Yeah, and I'll make sure I have all the links in the show notes below, so that way anybody, if you are watching this or listening to it, you can easily click that and connect with Mark. And also, don't forget to connect with me too. You know, make sure you connect with me. I'd love to get connected with you. If we don't know each other, please do that. Mark, thanks again for coming on today. Really appreciate you, buddy. And for everybody else, I will see you next time. And remember, everybody, rock it. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Hope you enjoyed the interview. If you did like what you heard, please do me a quick favor and hit that follow button wherever you are listening to the show. And also, please feel free to follow me on social media by using the links in my show notes. Thank you guys so much, and let's rock.